Perfect. All right, so here's a project file. We'll just dive into it. I use the same project for on the left side extended mix, right side radio cut. We'll focus on the radio edit just because I'm just taking out drums basically. That's the main difference, and some expanded sections I think in the second drop, maybe third one too. But yeah, I guess we'll dive into it. Top down approach. We can start with the vocals and then kind of look at everything else.
The rhythm is grooving, let me take you on the floor. My rhythm is grooving, DJ wants some more. My rhythm is moving, my rhythm is moving, my rhythm is moving, moving.
And then that kind of just loops itself over and over again. So automation wise, during the build up, there's a lot going on. Obviously, I think it's just reverb being added. This is the main vocal chain. It's a mess. I probably started this song 6-7 months ago, so I've certainly cleaned it up since this record. But I wonder if I could take everything off, and then here would the vocals sound like.
The rhythm is grooving, let me take you on the floor. My rhythm is grooving, DJ wants some more. My rhythm is moving, my rhythm is moving, my rhythm is moving, moving.
So as you can see, level-wise, it's similar. We're adding a lot, I think, of width, kind of giving it some depth in that sense. I haven't looked at this project since I finished it like 3 months ago. But looks like we're starting off with Saturn, getting a little bit of distortion from that, obviously kicking it up. I'm going to guess this is a low cut. Yeah, low cut, a little bit of work in the top end of the vocals to kind of probably just brighten them up a bit. Let's see. Yeah, basically. VC2A, use this all the time. That's just there to kind of flatten
The
it.
rhythm is grooving, let me take you on the floor.
I didn't even need that. Probably another low cut. No. Oh, okay. I'm using this as a one of the filters. Okay. And then the chain. So dry vocal, obviously pretty straightforward.
The rhythm is grooving, let me take you on the floor.
Nothing on the chain besides the pre stuff. So this is mostly kind of leveling a bit. I'm assuming the purpose of this was to kind of distort the mid range. It looks like, yeah. But that's basically it. And then cutting out some lows and the smallest amount of compression. And then this one, I guess I call it disto.
The rhythm is grooving, let me take you on the floor. My rhythm is grooving, DJ.
Using this for some width, getting some stereo width on it. Dopamine, of course, brightens it up so much, widening the hell out of it. Probably another low cut. Yeah, cutting the really low lows, most of the body, and a lot of the top end. So nothing crazy there. Slap back, probably just slap back delay with that. Yeah. Have some dynamic EQ kind of just to level it out a bit in that mid-high range. And then FX. So I don't know why I did it like this for this record, but I have the chain FX, and then within that, delay and reverb. So delay itself. And as you can see, it's hard sidechained to the dry vocal source. So it should say post effects, dry, yeah. So it's ducking. Basically, when the dry vocals are hitting, that's ducking out of the way. Once the dry vocals kind of release or end, then it opens up that reverb and delay. So they're both. Sounds kind of weird right now, but it's sitting under these anyway. Everything together.
My rhythm is moving. My rhythm is moving. Moving.
Breakdown, obviously, this is mostly Little Plate doing the work right here.
My rhythm is moving. Moving.
And then into the drop. I have soothe almost every time, always on vocals, and sometimes like saws if I'm ever using those. And it's doing pretty heavy lifting here. If we listen to the delta, I'm sure.
The rhythm is grooving. Let me take you on the floor. My rhythm is grooving. DJ wants some more. My rhythm is moving. My rhythm is moving. My rhythm is moving.
So it's not night and day, but it's certainly taking body out of the sound, which is something I obviously wanted to do because I needed to make room for some of the synths in that intro. But yeah, so that's kind of the gist of the main vocal processing. I change it song to song. All of these four are being squashed again into Presswork, which is probably my favorite compressor right now.
The rhythm is grooving. Let me take you on the floor. My rhythm is grooving. DJ wants some more. My rhythm is moving. My rhythm is moving. My rhythm is moving.
Nothing too crazy. Looks like I'm doing mid-side, obviously kind of clamping it down on the sides a bit more, just because I don't really need transients there, focusing more on the middle, and then really relatively tight release. So yeah, I would say for the most part, that's the main vocals. And then I have whatever these little things are. I wish I could tell you, but I honestly don't remember. This is during the drop, I think. Pretty quiet. It's constantly in the background. It's being pumped by the kick when it plays. And then this one, pricing thing. Yeah. Same concept. But yeah, so that's that. I keep my kicks separate from my drum bus now. I used to throw them all together. I started doing it separate. I have no idea why. I just prefer it that way now. Kick is 2 layers. I don't think there's anything crazy going on. You probably hear some sizzle. I think that's from this second top kick, or this top kick. So I have that overlaid with the default kick, the normal kick. That's what it sounds like soloed, the normal kick. Not in headphones. If you're not wearing headphones, it probably doesn't sound special at all. It's adding a little bit of width to it. It's doing something to that like low mid range that I just liked. Otherwise, it almost stood out too much, and I couldn't find a way to kind of EQ it the way I wanted to. And then the processing, grouping them together, looks like I have Saturn again, mostly mid range. I crushed the hell out of my kicks way too often. Not too badly here. Nowadays, I normally crush it a lot more with a really, really tight release. And then just a little bit of EQ work. Resonance I must have hated. Cutting a little bit of those low mids. And then a random boost basically on E. I'm not... sounds kind of fun solo, but yeah, no idea why I did that. And then this kicks on later at some point, looks like right here. So now I also do this differently. Now I normally have this on a bus with the bass line. So pretty straightforward. I guess I could have just band passed it, but I like the control I have with this. Kind of move them up individually, pulling it down in level a bit. Looks like I'm tightening it a little bit. So shortening it a little bit during the non-drop sections of the song. Yeah, it's basically the whole kick. So then most things are sidechained directly to this with Ableton Compressor, as we'll see. Yeah, so let's look at drums. I'll just solo them without the kick. And then I'll do it with the kick also just to see what it sounds like. And then without the kick again. So yeah, that's the gist of it. Probably nothing too crazy. Everything's kind of, like I said, a mess. Every song, unfortunately, is a different processing kind of technique I try to play with. The hats are all bussed together. None of them solo. I don't think sound that great. And then you throw them all together. And then the bus for them looks like I have. Is this automated? No. A little tiny bit of reverb. I probably just did that to give it some almost like what would feel like space in the mix instead of just sounding super dry. Obviously, open it up, cut all the low end out. EQ, probably a low cut. No, high cut. So a little bit of, I don't know how much you can see that, but a little bit of multiband there, and then randomly boosting that mid-range. Only in the center channel, though. I probably wanted a little more body. For some reason, I did it here instead of on the individual hats, but that's okay. And then kind of just running to Ableton's limiter. I used to use Pro L for everything, and then I realized there's really not a... When I was A-Bing it, it didn't make enough of a difference for me to really care. And for something basic like this, I'm not going too hard, and I don't need to be too, I guess, specific or detailed in what I'm trying to do. So it works out like that for me. It's like I have effect rack. Yeah, so there's the dry version, straightforward, basically down the middle. And this one's just basically, I think, 100% wide. So low it doesn't make sense, doesn't sound good. But getting some width on these, at least for me, was necessary. I wasn't able to just spread out the actual sample enough, so I had to get creative with it. And then it's being sidechained with LFO tool, cut, hard low cut, and it looks like this super high end. I'm assuming there was too much sizzle. And then this is automated at some point in the mix, it seems. Yeah, so it looks like it comes on in the intros and breakdown mostly. So not doing anything too crazy. I'm assuming it's just there to kind of sharpen the transient. Yeah, so when I actually want that downbeat emphasis on it without the kick, that's when I have that on. It's a nice touch, I think. This probably should have been in the hat bus. Who knows why I didn't do it like that. Pretty basic. Nothing really going on there. SI, EQ. I need to use this more. You hear it just brighten up that high end so much. If you have SIEQ, any of the Soundtoy stuff, but SIEQ is phenomenal at brightening. And yeah, so probably low cut again. Yeah, cutting the super highs again. Once again, probably was just hissing too much. So looks like I get rid of that. Kick bus, let's see. I'm trying to just speed run everything. I wanted to keep it around like 15, 20 minutes. So, and we're already at the halfway point. If I dove into it completely, it would probably be like a 2-hour project and me questioning, why did I do it this way? Why not this way? So on and so forth. But yeah, so this is the bus of the claps. If we break it down by samples, hopefully, I think this is probably the main clap. Yeah, pretty standard. Looks like this is kind of a bot. I guess I call it the body. Let's see. It's a little bit lower. There's two. Yeah, that one's mostly centered, lots of reverb. This one's probably, yeah, this one's pretty wide as we can see down here. And then texture. That one's pretty similar to the main clap. But yeah, all together. Yeah. I mean, you hear some tail on it. Looks like I added ROM. I'm afraid of opening this because it'll probably crash the project. At least that's what used to happen every time. That's what it sounds like. Dry. As you can see, yeah, this is getting limited pretty hard. Nothing crazy EQ-wise. I did a lot of mid-side processing. So I have a shortcut when we get to the master chain. I'll show it where I hold shift and basically I'm just typing an exclamation point on the keyboard and it switches the whole record to mono. And I must have just felt like in mono that mid-range was just disappearing. Yeah, and then limiting pretty hard if I take that off. Sounds good, but I certainly obviously wanted to tighten it up a bit. So cutting the peak and then boosting it to get a little more of that at probably like between 20 and like 50 millisecond kind of boosted. So that's my guess. Who knows? I don't even remember. Little reverse clap. Yeah, nothing crazy. So there's just a lot of little things, it seems like. Breakdown. I don't even know if this made the song. Oh, yeah, it did. It sounds kind of nasty, but it did what I needed it to do, I guess. I think I just wanted a texture in the background. As you can see, this is being crushed hard. Who knows? Let's see what it sounds like. That was pretty. It just had this very like almost ASMR sound. And I wanted something in the record to just push back. Cowbell. I think I use this in like 90% of my release records. If we remove all this, that's what we were getting before. Sounds nice, but I wanted it to kind of sizzle. So I think most of that work is being done by these two. Decapitator. Reclip, yeah. So Decapitator's doing a lot of that heavy lifting, and then Free Clip is kind of just cutting it even more. As you can kind of see, the red is what's being cut in Free Clip. Yeah, and so I have that going on. And then Auto Pan, just moving it around the stereo field a little bit, and then it looks like the tiniest amount of shifter. Let's see what it sounds like cranked up. Kind of similar, to be honest. So I must have kept it really low to kind of keep it almost sitting exactly where it is in the stereo field, the whole record. But it moves a little bit with that shifter. This sound, I have no idea where this came from, but I use this all the time for just background high-end noise. I don't even know how much you can hear that. But this, I have to soothe it so hard, as you can see. I use Soothe, obviously, cut the body out of it. I don't want it to be as tonal, so I get rid of that, cut some of the lows again, doing some automation. I mostly use this just for side information, side noise, during like drops, so it sounds even more busy. Maximalism in tech house, I guess, doesn't make sense, but I've been doing it, trying to. Just a little fill. RC, yeah, sounds like RC20 is on it. Perfect. Makes sense. I just love what it can do to a sound. The vinyl alone does so much, and then Tube Repair really can dirty it and give it more of a vintage sound, because it's doing something to cut the high end that I love and kind of add these weird harmonics. It's giving it a little bit of stereo width too, and crazy EQ. Geez, all right, without it, way too bright. I don't like that. It just sounds nasty. So this kind of softens the sound up a bit. Crushing again. As you can probably tell, I do that too much. Hey, but that's okay. And then fills, nothing crazy. So let's look at snare build. Probably also nothing too crazy. I'm the worst at snare builds, so have low expectations. That's without anything. Yeah, pretty straightforward, nothing crazy. FX, as you can see, there's a lot going on. I don't want to run through everything just because time-wise that would take forever. But I use this stomp. I think it's originally from a Z thing, Addicted to a Memory. It says, yeah. Oh, wrong thing, my bad. So this is pan, just hard left, hard right. Once again, just texture, adding some variation. It's not very noticeable in the mix. These I use all the time. These two effects things, these two channels. I just love that sound. In this project, I have my crashes in here, but I've started to separate them from the FX in general. Then drop. So that's at the drop. Build up, I'm using another noisy thing. I have this reversed, it looks like. So same as the intro, just flipped it. That goes on forever. Just a bunch of little beeps and boops. The crash, probably pretty straightforward. Honestly, wish I brought that up in the mix more. So yeah, this is just a lot of texture. If I took this out of the track, originally I didn't really have much effects in it and it just sounded bland. So a lot of these are kind of just little variations thrown in, random sounds to kind of carry over into the next, 2, 4, 8 bars. And it, it's able to get the job done. Synth-wise, I think it's mostly just this patch, which I made in Diva, I believe. Yes. So not a lot of high end. It looks like it's based on this patch. Pretty straightforward. Without the processing. So much body. You hear this kind of weird tail on it, at least in the right side if you're in headphones. Kind of cool sound though. I pulled it towards the middle a lot. It looks like probably because it was way too wide. Yeah, as you can see, it's as wide as it. Yeah, I don't. For me, normally I don't want those too similar for my main sounds. I want it obviously more focused on the middle, which would explain this. So it's pulling some of that side information away. But yeah, with all the processing, we're probably doing a low cut. And then within that, Echo Boy, I turn that off for a second. It's just way too dry. So that helps it kind of bounce around the stereo field a bit. Limiter, of course, like I said, I've been using that way too much. OTT, who knows what this is doing? Oh, it's going pretty hard. DS to slightly pull down the sustain. Nothing crazy. Another EQ. Of course, another low cut. This one's really aggressive. And then cutting a lot of that high end sizzle again. If I solo this, it doesn't even sound like it's the same synth, but the patch just had a lot of weird high end sizzle. So I tried to remove some of that, did some weird stuff, cut more of the body. It just didn't feel like it was needed. And then another EQ. Not sure why I did it separately, probably just so that it looked cleaner, to cut some of the low end side information. So yeah, nothing too crazy. But yeah, pretty straightforward. And then that's layered with this. Honestly, I probably didn't even need that, but I kept it in the song. Why not? I don't even know what this is. Was it used? Oh, just kidding. That's the main sound during the breaks. So originally I was just going to use a Reese under these breakdowns, but it just sounded so bland, so boring. This is probably just some basic Serum patch. Yeah, whatever Virtual Riot synth Game Boy Dreams. Pretty cool, nice. I remove some of the processing. There's not too much. Sounds pretty similar, right? I mostly just dirtied it up a bit. It sounds like auto pan, just to get a little bit of movement on it left and right. I wanted to give it some dancing around in the stereo field. The main thing down the middle is just the vocals for this section, right? So everything else can kind of sit around it or below or above it in the frequency spectrum. Well, this is in the same range, so I wanted to push it out to the sides a bit more. And it worked out pretty well. I need to save this rack, or make it a rack and save it, because it's pretty sick. This is doing some work. Let's see. it looks like it's actually pulling down the high end, but it actually feels like it's bringing it up, at least in headphones. Obviously, a hard cut on that top end. Like I said, I want the vocal sibilance to stand out, so that's why all this was cut. Sounds kind of ugly anyway. I don't need that. I don't want that. Of course, a hard low cut. And then, yeah, nothing too crazy here. Kind of a bass mono 250, probably because the Reese, I didn't want it to play or interfere with that at all. I wanted to keep them as separated as I could. And then I guess that kind of just leads us right into the bass line. Real quick, this layer, I think I did keep it in the final cut. Yeah, I did. So this is just kind of copying what's going on in those. Originally, it was going to be a chord progression, but I just obviously simplified it down to one note. So you have that going on again during that longer breakdown, and then into this. Underneath it, this is mostly just there for width. If you look down here in millimeters, that was the main purpose of it. That's it. It really doesn't add anything great to the record, but YOLO. Reese, obviously straightforward. I don't know what patch I used or if it's one I made. Resonant Reese thing. I think I got this from, I'm 90% sure, Bound to Divide. I think I originally got it from him, or maybe I remade it off of something I heard from one of his records. Obviously, he does like progressive stuff, progressive house, and I think uses a lot more Reeses than I do. So I think I heard something and was like, oh, that's really cool. So then I ended up with this. If I take these off, there's probably a lot of high end. Quite the opposite. All right, wow, look at that. So I know Bus Driver, I don't use it too often anymore, but it's a great tube compressor. I'm smacking the hell out of it, as you can see. So it's that alone's giving it grit. And it sounds great. And then it looks like EQ, probably just taking off the extreme highs because I don't want any chance of that interfering with the top synth or the vocal. So you don't hear this too much, once again, probably unless you're in headphones, but it's there, and I just wanted to cut it. Looks like I'm boosting just in the middle channel about probably 100 to about 250. There was this weird dip, as you can see, so I wanted to try to compensate for that. But yeah, and then we get to the bass line. This must have been, actually this could be funny, let's see what it sounds like. Probably the old bass line. That's actually just sounds horrible, so we don't need to look at that. But yeah, here's the main bass line in the record. Patch is BA sometimes. I think this is from, Evolution of Sounds originally. So if you take that, I know I certainly added the chorus, dropped some of this down. I think I switched this from ADS to digital. And then obviously kind of just tweaked this to taste. And then I actually switched it. It might have already been mono, actually, but I think I switched it to lowest. Normally I like the portamento, I think is what it's called, between notes. So originally I had some of that, but then I kind of swapped it out to simplify the bass line. So that goes directly just into EQ8. Literally, basically, the only time I use EQ8 is on, my low end bass sounds, just to cut the lows. So this probably isn't even audible. Yeah, not much. Just cutting that. Who knows why? Must have thought it was a good idea. Dropping the overall level of the sub a bit, and then cutting about everything above 1800 hertz. So this is getting cut from the sound. And then for this, I think I just pulled it back because it was clashing too much with the bass line. remove it. Still sounds good, but I just needed to clean up a bit so I could crush it into the limiter again, as you can see, using that harder. Everything below about 160 hertz is mono, and then I let it open up a little bit. But there's not too much width in this bassline. There just doesn't need to be for the sound. And then this is being sidechained with Chipper Box 2. Kind of a weird sidechain. So the low end is obviously being sidechained a lot longer and harder. And then if we look at the higher band, so shorter, actually just as deep. It's just basically about what a half or a third is long. Because I basically just want to get the sub of that sound out of the way. The rest of it, I want to kind of keep the body, but obviously duck it a little bit just for the kick to kind of sit there. That's a little more important to me in the mix, having that kick sitting right. Drone layers. This is probably just a sample from somewhere. I don't know where though. It says I imported it from somewhere. That's going throughout the song. Nothing crazy. High string comes in once in a while, does the same thing. Guitar. So this, I think, is just doubling the main synth sound also, if I had to guess. Yeah. And this is the processing on it. So this is a sample I recorded, actually my friend recorded like a decade ago, that as you can see, I took just the very initial slice of it and kind of just use it as a one shot, basically, even though it's not on one shot. Yeah, and so all the processing on that, if we listen to it dry, probably sounds horrific. That's what it sounds like before. This is giving it some width, so it looks like I'm using this I'm just delaying it. I have no idea why I used this to delay it, but I did. So as you can hear now, you get some width. And then obviously Guitar Rig is doing all the work. Cutting some of that body out, just don't need it. And then a hard limiter if I take that off. Sounds nice without the limiter, but my guess is I obviously did that because I didn't need the transient. I didn't need that initial hit of the sound. This is all kind of atmospheric in my opinion, but for some reason, once again, didn't process it in the same bus. So for atmosphere, I just have this noise, cheering and whatever this is. Vinyl, of course. Very quiet. If I crank it, that's what it sounds like. I love that. Just once again, just a little bit of variation, just kind of adds some noise to the background, especially when it's hard panned like that or pushed out far in the mix, left and right. So there's a lot of kind of dancing around the stereo field happening with those little things. This sample from a song that I probably shouldn't have sampled. If I take everything off, it sounds pretty plain. So that's obviously the before. Turn it back on. Shifter, doing a little bit of maybe stereo or pitch movement. Not really anything going on with that, to be honest. Echo Boy's doing a lot of work to kind of give it almost like this ping pong effect. It was the gist of it, obviously. Yeah. And then Decapitators, once again, doing so much heavy lifting. That's before with Decapitator. Crazy amount of work being done by that. Pulling it towards the center again, so kind of squashing it towards the middle, just because for some reason I think in the drop I just didn't want this sound to be too wide, since it's playing at the same time as the clap. And then yeah, EQ. Basically, if I turn this off, it's mostly just the low end and. I just didn't need that much body in a sound that I wanted further back in the mix. There's no need for it to be there. So obviously cut all that low end out, as you can see. And then it looks like I removed the fundamental. Dropped that by almost 8 decibels. So yeah, cutting that hard. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of everything. I don't think I used this for this record. The Juno. Bassline, I don't know what I was doing with this. Yeah, this was not used. But sounds nice. Cool. Yeah, but that obviously didn't get used. I was probably just playing around with ideas. But yeah, so I guess we can real quick. Let's try to take a look at the master chain. This one I did do myself. I should probably start sending things off to get mastered, but this one was my own master. I'll play the chorus. I'll just do like the measure or two before into it without the master chain, and then I'll turn it on a couple measures in, and you can kind of hear hopefully some of the major changes being made. So that's without, and then with. So yeah, obviously one a lot louder. Did a little balancing, obviously, in the mix with, I think I did, was it tonal balance or. We'll take a look at it. So this is normally just sitting there by default. Sometimes I crank it down or crank it up depending on the record, how I'm mixing it, if I'm going too hot or not. Basic limiter. This is doing a lot of work. I think this is just to kind of touch the peak at 0 because it was nowhere close to that. So that's basically what that's doing. This. Oh yeah, so this must be old if I was still using Ozone 9. I wish I could remember when I started this project, but I think it was about 6-7 months ago. Exciter, just doing a little bit of work to brighten. If I turn it off, I don't even know how noticeable it would be. But I guess we can check real quick. I think for the most part, you hear it in this very top end, a little bit more sizzle. Maybe some more. It almost sounds like there's a little more width, especially in the shakers. And then obviously the imager, I'm pulling the low end down. I don't go completely mono. One, normally things down here, I'm already in the mix making mono. And then 2, sometimes you get some bleed from that low mid range and other sounds that you kind of want to leave open. So this, as you can see, if you look all the way down at millimeters, there's basically nothing in the mid side. It's all down the middle, a little bit probably from that main synth. And that carries, obviously, the higher up I go, as you can see, the wider the spectrum gets. Still not too much in the sides. This one's a little more open. Honestly, this is probably should be the most open section. Well, not this range specifically, but somewhere in that like 3 to 10K where you're mostly going to be hearing, your hats and your shakers getting width up there. And then this is, I started this really low, it looks like, but yeah, this is the highest band. It's doing some work. Yeah, and then that just goes into a maximizer. Transient emphasis, I must have, who knows why I turned it on. IR C4 makes sense. Once again, probably not doing too much. So not too much ducking. If I take the rest of the chain off and then listen to that. It's obviously quieter, but it doesn't sound like too much of the tonalities changing. Pro MB, this is just kind of pulling things down, try to level within frequency bands a little bit. This is probably doing the most work if I had to guess. Basically. And then very top band in this song, looks like I decided to expand. Where it says compress, but basically every time it goes below, every time this band goes below that negative 18 dB threshold, it's boosting. I think I did this to kind of sharpen the hats a little bit, have them cut through more. But yeah, this is just the way I did it for this record. Sometimes it's 4 bands, sometimes they're adjusted differently, sometimes they're not as sloped, sometimes it's a harder slope, maybe not that aggressive, but not always this open. But it must have been what I was going for this song for some reason. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Oxford Inflator. I love this thing. I don't even think you have to buy it. I'm pretty sure someone made like a Ableton stock version of it or something that's like almost a 1-to-1 replica of it. So, I mean, if you have it, great. I would suggest using it. I originally just had this on the drum bus. And then when I threw it on everything instead of just the drum bus, I was like, holy shit. Like, it just opened up everything a little bit more, kind of gave a little more of that pumping effect I like. You hear it a little bit on the bass line. This is EQ Match. I don't know. I don't remember what song I must have used. It could have been a Martin Eichen song. I could have used a Biscuit song. I could have used another house song I like. But normally those two artists are like some of my favorite to reference. So yeah, I kind of just threw this on. It does mid-side separately. I don't think it's doing anything. It's relatively tame. Obviously, you can crank up the smoothing to be hyper aggressive like that. But that's not, then it's almost a 1-to-1 match of the song you're referencing when it comes to the tonality of it. But obviously, you go too hard and your song's just going to sound weird. So a little more general purpose. Obviously, this, if I went 100%, it would be like this. That's over a 6 dB change from 100 to like 1K. That's ridiculous. I don't want to do that. So relatively tame in the mids. Sides, when I use this, I go a little more aggressive just because I want it to dance around more. I want it to be a little more, have a little more character, I guess. And plus, I feel like you can kind of mess around with them a little bit more to kind of, see how everything sounds. So that was the gist of that. If I turn it off, it's probably not a big difference. Play 4 bars with and without. All right, well, I soloed it, so I guess that doesn't really show you, but so I don't know. I think for this song, it got rid of some of the nasaliness. Could I have done that in a different way? Yes, I'm sure. I must have just been lazy. Standard clip. Obviously, so this is boosting it 1.4 dBs and then doing some soft flipping. This is obviously raising the overall level a bit too. As we can see. The red's everything being cut, right? So there's a lot going on, but it works. I like how it sounds. I normally use it. Sometimes I'll interchange these in the spots depending on, just how it's sounding, but I guess in this case, I wanted it right before L2. Originally, I did have this just cutting the super high end, but I just went back in the mix and fixed the things that were bothering me up there instead of just playing with this. Cool. And then obviously ending it for me with Pro L2. I kind of changed this. Nowadays, I go just zero point 0.1 decibel true peak. The reason I decided to switch from just 0.2, it's such a tiny difference, but I basically just bought like 10 or 20 masters or songs off Beatport, lossless. And when I was looking at the songs I was comparing mine to, they all had like a true peak of that number and a sample peak of that number. So I was like, all right, I'll just start replicating that instead of going here. Some people go all the way to like -1 or -2, whatever. I'm not really, unless you're listening on like a shitty speaker, like extremely shitty, it shouldn't matter. Most of them can handle, I think it's up to like 3 decibels above 0 dB before you get really bad distortion. But once again, who cares? It's fucking dance music. It's house music. It's all distorted anyway, right? So yeah, this one, I kind of just delink these, the channel linking. So the left and right obviously are almost more independent from when they clip. So the left can clip without affecting the right too much. Does a little bit, but not too much. Release, I normally keep around 140 to 200, depending on how aggressive I want to go. Attack, normally I go lower than this now, but I guess I wanted a little more of that bite, probably on those downbeats where the kick is really getting hit. Because if we listen to this is just going to basically be distortion. We're going to be playing the delta. So this is what Pro L is doing. And you almost exclusively just hear those downbeats and upbeats. In the mix, it's not really that noticeable in the sense that you don't really hear that distortion because it's already so busy anyway. But if we turn it off and then go up to 2.6, maybe we can see how it's affecting the sound. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it, of the master chain. The only other things, a lot of the time when I'm working on a song like this, I do have shortcuts. So for me, it's if I hit Shift and 1, it's, as you can see down here, it turns everything to mono. So then I can check the song if I'm using my headphones or my reference monitors in mono. Obviously do that after everything. 2, so if I do Shift and 2, it turns off the master chain because I don't always want it on, obviously, especially in that initial process. Shift 3 turns on Pro Q3, which for me is doing a cut at 200 hertz. This is just a kind of like, I guess, like a ghetto phone test, just cut the low end and make sure that everything still sounds there. If it sounds too weak, that probably means I have way too much low end in the song. That's just eating up headroom. So this is with it on. So it's useful for me. And then Shift and 4, it's literally just a side info. So I just use utility because, I don't know, it gets the job done. So now, if you're in headphones, it probably sounds weird, but we're only hearing what's happening on the sides. Everything down the middle is gone. All you're going to hear, if you're listening to this, is my voice straight down the middle. But this is good. For me, I like using that to kind of test where are things sitting in the stereo field. Are things too far out? Are they, phasing too much? Is it too bright, not bright enough? So on and so forth. So kind of just play with it like that. But yeah, that's kind of a breakdown of the record. I probably went on a lot longer than I meant to. That tends to happen. I like to talk, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of an overall breakdown. Hopefully you liked the song. Hopefully you saw something in here that was kind of cool or useful. If not, I apologize for making you waste your time. But yeah, that's the gist of it. So if you're liking Movin', obviously give it some streams. Go check it out. Show it some love. Maybe you should play it for some friends. But that's basically it. So hope you guys appreciated it. And I'll let you guys go. Take care.